So we have some adventures ahead.
Yes.
We're in Israel. Cannot wait. We're going to talk about the women in Jesus' life. He believed in women. He did incredible works around and through women.
Yes.
And he still does.
Yes. Absolutely.
And so we want to look at the lives of these women and the places really that a lot of these major events happen. It's going to be so cool. I can't wait.
And where are we starting?
We're starting in Bethlehem, the beginning.
Our faith
You know,
begins.
Jesus is born, and he was born to a woman.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we get to see some cool things, even just being here. Redemption.
Yeah.
Micah 5:2 prophesied that Bethlehem would be redeemed. And then we see really the first miraculous kind of act with Mary's, immaculate conception with his own mother.
Yeah.
So all of these things are so critical to this spot. So it's kind of a launching point for all the great things that we're going to see.
So cool.
So part of Jesus' story is taking a look at one of the most influential women in his life, and that's his mother, Mary. So since we are in Bethlehem, I think it's so important to highlight a woman that impacted his life and eventually even our faith. Like she raised the Messiah. And I love that in Luke chapter 1, it says that she found favor in the eyes of God. And then in verse 28, it says that she was highly favored. Those two phrases sound very similar, but the nuances indicate something different. Highly favored indicates that there was a divine favor and purpose over this young woman's life. But found favor in the eyes of God spoke to the privilege she had to birth the Messiah. And in that time, she would have been viewed as a loosey-goosey, a hoochie, a hussy. She got pregnant before she got married.
scary.
And this is grounds not just for divorce, but grounds for even her life being terminated. So the fact that God found her favored in his eyes speaks to the type of woman she is and the type of woman that we're going to be discussing in this series.
And to think about how Mary must have felt whenever she finally had Jesus, like how empowered she must have felt that God entrusted her with something like his son, and then she got to take such good care of him and then birth him in this place. You think about that as a woman, God trusts us with so many things, with dreams, with visions, with job ideas, with all these different things, and we get to hold him, we get to treasure him, we get to think about him, and then whenever it's finally birthed and released, how empowered you feel and how special you feel that God trusted you with a dream like that. So
I just think it's so fitting to start here, to start with Mary, because she's kind of our launching point, as I said before, and to know that Jesus is going to do miraculous, countercultural, untraditional, controversial things using women in his ministry, starting with his very own mother.
In the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent from God to a city of Galilee named Nazareth, to a virgin betrothed to a man whose name was Joseph. And the virgin's name was Mary. And he came to her and said, "Greetings, O favored one, the Lord is with you." But she was greatly troubled at the saying. And the angel said to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. And behold, you will conceive in your womb and bear a son. And you shall call his name Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High. And the Lord God will give to him the throne of his father David. And of his kingdom there will be no end." And Mary said, "Behold, I am the servant of the Lord. Let it be to me according to your word." And the angel departed from her. God comes to earth, and he does it through the life of a young woman. Mary's future, her reputation, her fiance, her entire life is hanging in the balance when she finds out that she's going to bear the Son of God. She has no control over what's about to happen, her future, how it's gonna work out. And one of my favorite verses that sums up that moment and her faith, and it's one that, gosh, I wanna live, is this, in Luke 1:38. And Mary said, "Behold, I am the servant of the Lord. Let it be to me according to your word." And the angel departed from her. That even though this is going to be costly, and even though this is beyond her understanding and she can't control the outcome, let it be as you say. I want your will, God. I want your glory on this earth. I want to carry out your purposes for me here, whatever they are. And gosh, that's difficult. God moved through a woman who knew when he called her to this sacrifice, this life full of obedient sacrifice, that she would say words like, "Let it be as you say." I don't know if there's a greater response to God when he calls us to something than that. Whatever you want from me, God, let it be as you say. For all of us, we can't control the circumstances. We can't control the seasons of life we find ourselves in. We can't control the outcomes of our lives, whether that's infertility or a broken marriage or a friendship that is crumbling or a job that we hate. We think we can control the circumstances, yet what God moves through over and over again, let it be as you say. And there was a reason Mary's faith was so strong. I want to take a look at that. One of the things that you see in Luke 1 is she sees Elizabeth, her friend, her sister girl, and she prays and celebrates what God has done in her. And you see this quote, and it's full, this prayer, it's full of scripture. She actually knew God's words. She sat under them. She absorbed them. She lived in his words. She trusted his words. She knew the love of God, and she trusted him. She also knew who to go to when things were getting a little bit scary. She had this community and support, and she sought that out. She wasn't passive. This idea of surrender, it's not a passive activity. It's probably one of the most difficult things we can do to trust God. It isn't just about letting go. It's actually also about what we're gonna pick up. We let go of control, but we pick up the truth. We pick up the tools that God has given us to walk with him faithfully over years. And when we don't, well, I'm familiar with that because for several months recently, I did not pick up what he's given me. I did not confess, and I walked through this season of doubt, and I did it alone. And what happens when you start to doubt is you start to get cynical and you start to get passive. And so I was choosing Netflix and comfort instead of confession and this book. And I was setting aside the very things he gave me to build my trust and to build my faith. And so of course my faith shrunk. See, we've got to realize that our choices, those impact our trust. But our trust will also impact our choices. Yeah, surrender is not a passive thing. It is one of the most difficult things we'll ever do. But that moment will come where you'll say, God, let it be as you say, or you'll walk away and you'll be passive and you'll set down the very things that God's putting in your life to change other people's. Mary said yes, and you guys, it changed eternity. Let's not miss it.
A wedding took place at Cana in Galilee. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no more wine." "Woman, why do you involve me?" Jesus replied. "My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." So they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet." They did so, and the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. Then he called the bridegroom aside and said, "Everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you have saved the best till now." So we are at the wedding chapel in Cana, which is amazing because this is where Jesus performed this first miracle, which was turning water into wine. And so this is unbelievable. And to think about in reference, this is kind of in between Jesus' hometown of Nazareth and the Sea of Galilee. And I love this story because it's like Jesus cares about a party. You know what I'm saying? He cares about a party.
Our Savior knows how to party.
Yeah.
I love that this was his first miracle because it almost like set the precedent for 3 years of ministry work around a table. Yeah. And I love that this concept of who Jesus brought around his table, it was a sign of what he accepted and who he accepted. Yeah. He didn't accept sin, but he accepted sinners. Yeah. So around the dinner table, there was tax collectors, prostitutes, I mean, crazy fishermen, the low class, the high class, the highbrow. I mean, from the ratchet to the righteous, they all had a seat at Jesus' table. And I love more than any of that is that in the book of Luke, he documents that Jesus is either going to a party, from a party, or at a party in almost every account. In 85% of his ministry work in the book of Luke, it's at a party. He does a party.
Well, and I love it because you see this relationship between he and his mom. I mean, there's a little bit of tension, you know, and also a breaking away, you know, this is kind of like, you know, I'm gonna do what God's called me to do. But I have a son that's getting older, and there's some like, you know, this is where real life kind of sucks into the scriptures where you're like, there were real relationships, and Jesus was a good son. You know he was. He was a great son. But there also was this breaking away. And I relate to that. I mean, that's kind of what I'm seeing right now. Like, part of winning as a mom is letting that happen.
Yeah. But you don't ever fully break away, because the fact that she even brought the issue to him, she's like, hey, listen, this is not your wedding, but they are out of wine. It's so mom and son. It's like, I mean, surely you can fix it. And I thought maybe she kind of had an inkling that he could do something miraculous, but I'm not even sure because he hadn't performed a miracle yet. But it was a typical mom-son, and he was probably like, what they got to do with me? Right. And he said it in a really holy way, like, you know, woman, my time has not come. But it's really like, why are you telling me this? Yeah. But she still was that mom that had the intuition. She was like, okay, he's acting like he's not gonna do anything. But then she goes and tells the servant, she's like, listen, whatever he says, do it. Yeah. And then he comes along and he fixes the problem. The miracle is amazing, but it's also this compassionate side of Jesus, because water and having wine at a wedding is not a life or death situation. That's just a nice thing. I mean, it was important, but it was just a nicety. It wasn't necessary. And he still said, I have compassion. I want them to have a great time. I want them to enjoy the celebration. So I love seeing that side of him where he was like, I mean, I want to make it the best thing I can.
This is a study about women, like how Jesus feed women. And I think this relationship was his first relationship with a woman, right? It was his mother, and how he loved and took care of her even on the cross. He's looking down and he's saying, Mary, like, take care of my mom. Like, he cared about women, and it started with his mom.
And she got to instigate the first miracle.
Yes.
That's good stuff.
I mean,
and it was a party.
And mamas matter. Mamas matter.
Okay, so when we hear about the story of Jesus turning water into wine, oftentimes we just focus on the fact that Jesus turned water into wine. I mean, what a miracle is that? But today I want us to look at it at a little different angle. I want to look at how Mary acted in this scenario. What can we learn from Mary? Because I believe that Mary actually teaches us a lot in this. In the story in John chapter 2, verse 1 through 11, at the wedding of a family friend, Mary encounters a shortage in the wine. And she didn't want the host to be embarrassed or anything, and so she decided, man, what can I do to help? And immediately she's like, I gotta go to Jesus. But you gotta think, if we're reading this, it's actually kind of cool that she went to Jesus, because this is Jesus' first miracle. So what made Mary think that I can go to Jesus and Jesus is gonna know what to do? But she did. And so first, let's take a look at Mary's strength and her character in this scenario. First off, Mary had a lot of faith. Mary knew and she trusted Jesus' ability to make all things right. She was actually probably the only person at the party that knew the only person at the party who could actually fix this problem. Because if you have water and you don't have wine, how are you gonna get water to be wine? Mary went straight to Jesus because she just thought only if he knew about it. So she asked him boldly and just asked him directly to help. And I think we can learn a lot about that through that faith. Do we see a problem and think, you know what, I don't know what to do in this scenario, but my Jesus does, and so I'm just gonna go to him, and I don't know what he's gonna do, but I'm just gonna ask and just lay it in his hands. Not only did she have faith, but what she also had was intercession. And I think that's so important. You line up faith and intercession at the same time, you got a lot of movement that's about to happen. If you look at her attitude and the action she gives behind it, it's such a wonderful example of how we can intercede for others. And she did it with grace and she did it with boldness. The two of those together are so important. So she had faith, she had intercession, and another thing she had is confidence. And I know confidence is one of those things that's really, really hard for us to have sometimes as women. But think about this. In Hebrews 10:35, it says, so then do not forget the confident trust that you have in the Lord, for that will be richly rewarded. So this confidence isn't like a self-confidence we have to have. It's a confidence that you have to have in God. It's a confidence bigger than yourself. Listen to the words she said to the servant. She said, do what he says. I mean, that's so simple, but it's actually so profound. And I think that those words right here, do what he says, that should resonate with us every time we read something like this. That should resonate with every single follower of Jesus. Because Mary assumed, or actually probably more than assumed, she trusted that Jesus was going to act. And so another thing Mary was, and this is really huge, Mary was other-centered. Now you might be thinking, what is that? Well, that's the opposite of self-centered. And this is a really important thing to think about and challenge yourself in. Ask yourself, am I other-centered or am I self-centered? Because none of this would have really happened if Mary wasn't concerned for others. Mary was so concerned for others that she didn't ask Jesus to make more wine just because she's like, man, I want more wine, I'm so thirsty. But she did it because she desired for this wedding to be a success. She didn't want the host to be embarrassed, and so she saw a problem and she privately went to fix it with Jesus before it went public and embarrassed somebody. See, if we're self-centered, we don't always even notice the problems around us. If we're self-centered, sometimes we don't even care even if others are embarrassed around us because we're too focused on ourselves and our own problems and our own insecurities. But when we're others-focused, we can go to Jesus with the problem, and I'm telling you, it only makes the party better. That's something about Jesus I love. He makes a party better. Okay, so challenging ourselves to learn from Mary, let's just ask ourselves, are we actually praying and expecting to see God do what we're asking him to do? See, when we're praying for the good of others, like Mary did in this situation, we shouldn't hesitate to go to God and ask him for these things. I mean, if it's something that God wants to do, I think he's gonna love whenever we come to him with a problem. Because these are the kind of things we know we can't do on our own. There should be no hesitation when we know it's for others. We also have to understand that, and this is really important, I love this thought. We have to understand that there was a relationship before there was any requests that happened on this day. Mary had an actual relationship with Jesus before she just went and asked him to do something. And we all can have that relationship. Of course, we know Mary was his mother, but we have a relationship with Jesus in a family type way that we have to know, man, I know I can come request this to you because we're in such relationship. I know what you can do about it. Mary knew her son's compassion, and she believed he has some supernatural power to make something miraculous happen. So she didn't just ask Jesus to do something that was super outside of his character. And I think that's why it's so important to know the character of God and so important to have a relationship with God, because then you can know, man, I'm asking God something that aligns with his will, and why would he not want to answer that? Those are the kind of things that we can boldly go to him with grace and with expectancy, because we know that God is truly going to do what we ask for in the name of Jesus when it aligns with something that he wants to be done already. I want us to look one more time about how Mary was so aware and so compassionate for others that she noticed the problem that others were having. And then not only did she notice it, but she put action behind it. And the only reason she was able to do that is because she was other-centered. You see, I can't get over that, because I know in today's world, it's kind of all about the selfie. We live in a very selfie generation. It's a very self-centered time where it's all about the selfie you take. It's all about how to make myself more known, myself more seen. And a lot of times that's like at the forefront of our mind. And it's kind of a scary thought. And I don't know if you've ever heard this quote, but this is something that really changed my perspective. It says the opposite of love, it's not hate, it's actually selfishness. Because when we become so focused inwardly, we're actually not able to see outwardly the world around us. And then we're not able to fulfill one of the greatest commandments, to love one another. How are we gonna love one another if we're too focused on ourselves to even see one another? We have to lay down this self-centered mindset, because when we do that, I think it's gonna free up our mind capacity to see others around us, see our friends around us, see our family around us, see the generation around us, and really see the world around us enough to be able to intercede for those people. Just like Mary, we're putting action behind the things we're seeing. We're having faith to believe God's gonna do what he says he can do. We're having faith to even intercede for our friends and family with the world around us. And we're not just sitting here and being like, oh man, we have a problem. We're saying, yes, we have a problem, but we also serve a God who can fix the problem. So get to know Jesus more, get to know who your God is, get to know what he can do, and then don't be afraid and don't hesitate to ask for the things that align with his will.
Hey everybody, how's it going? My name's Caroline Parker, and I'm so excited to be here with you guys. This is my friend Kaylee.
Hello.
We are both on the If Gathering team. I'm the events and logistics specialist. Kaylee, you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, hey everyone. We are so glad you guys are here tuning in with us. Like Caroline said, my name is Kaylee Marias, and I am our digital media specialist here at If Gathering. So all things social media and marketing is where I'm at.
Hey, can you guys see me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can see you. Hey.
Awesome. And I'm Katie Boatman, and I am also part of this team. I'm our senior copywriter and content manager, so I get the privilege of overseeing the creation of these Bible studies like what the women saw. So we're super pumped to get to unpack what we just heard, because it's a lot and it's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, we are really, really excited to be going through this study with you guys. And as you have probably already found out, there is a chat probably on the right side of your browser that we're interacting with you on. A bunch of our team is on there, and you guys are already in there praying for each other and letting us know where you're tuning in from. You guys are all over the place. Some of you are from Ireland, San Antonio, Ontario, Oahu, Hawaii, Australia, Singapore. I saw there. I'm from
literally
the Midwest,
all over
so
the world.
we're excited here. We have never done such an interactive study before, and the reason we wanted to do it is because we love getting to hear from you guys. We love being here with you and hearing what you have to say. So feel free to chat away. We want to have this conversation with you guys, and just we're all in our homes live streaming with our own Wi-Fi, and you guys, everyone being at home during this pandemic, you know how wild it can be with the internet connection. So if we cut out or freeze or something, have grace on us. We'll probably come back. It's probably just our Wi-Fi connections.
Yeah, just hang in there.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and get started. Kaylee and Katie, first question is just what stood out to you guys in the video? And for all of you tuning in at home, we want to hear what you have to say too. What stood out to you? What resonated with you? Let us know in the chat, and we would love to highlight some of those. So Kaylee, how about you? What stood out to you in that video?
Yeah, so like you said, there is so much. I think what stood out to me a lot was just, and I saw you guys comment this too in the chat, but just Mary's response to the angel and just her willingness to surrender and obey stood out to me so much. Like, if you think about it, this is a life-changing event to her. Like, it wasn't small by any means. This news is going to alter everything about her life and her relationships and her circumstances. And Jenny just talks about how she surrendered to God's will because she knew God. And just that verse about how it says, like, Mary's response is, "Behold, I'm a servant of the Lord. Let it be to me according to your word."
Yeah.
And so I just think what's so powerful about that is the reason Mary was able to surrender is because she knew God and she knew his character, and she knew his word. And so because she knew him and his word, she was able to trust in that, and that's what led to surrender ultimately. And so, that stood out to me a lot. Surrender is by no means passive, and Jenny talked about that too. And so that stood out to me a lot and encouraged me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Caroline Parker, did we lose you?
Can you not hear me?
Well, we can hear you.
Okay. I'll go out and try to come back in.
You're a little frozen, but we can hear you.
I'm going to turn my video off and try to come back on.
Okay, cool. We'll keep this party going in the meantime. Kaylee, I was thinking about the point that Jenny made that, like, we can't always control our circumstances, but we can control the way that we respond. And I thought so much about, like, the environment that we're in and just the season that we're in with COVID-19 and having more, questions than answers. Hi, Caroline Parker. Welcome back.
Am I back?
Yes,
you're back. You're back.
Okay, great.
But just the act of surrender, like daily surrender in that, that, like, we can control the way that we respond, and thinking about, just like you said, like Mary's response and, like, let it be to me according to your word. And, like, can I have that same posture every day when I wake up?
Seriously.
Like, it's hard, but to watch that trust that she had in who he is, we know that he's good. And so, like, it's such a challenge to us to be able to have that same posture every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you guys have pointed out some things in the chat that stood out to you in the video. LRNTO said she loved that Bianca pointed out that Mary was highly favored and found favor with God, even though the society of her day wouldn't have seen her that way. That's such a great point. The circumstance and the community that she was in would not have seen that as a highly favored situation, but that is what she's told. That's how God sees her. It's such a great point. April said, as a mom of 3 sons, I pray I'm so close to the Lord that I can lead them to the exact plan Jesus has for them when the time comes. Yeah. I think sometimes we forget just Mary's motherhood, that she really was a mom and she raised him for a long time before he went into public ministry.
Yeah.
So, getting to hear from some of you guys and what stood out to you. I think one of my favorite parts, and this is, you guys are going to laugh, but especially now that we're under quarantine, I feel like I'm a bit of an extrovert. And one of my favorite parts is when they talked about Jesus liking to party and how so much of life took place around people. And I'm all around being around people and love a good time. And so much of his life was lived in community, whether he was with his family, disciples, his friends, the people that were following him. He was around people so much, and that was such a big part of their culture. And especially during this pandemic and a lot of us being quarantined and having to stay at home, we don't get to live that way, but right now. But I think that culture really contributed to the others-focused mindset that Mary had, that Sadie was talking about, especially when it came to the wedding at Cana, where she interceded. You know, the wine running out was not Mary's problem. It was the host's problem. Mary didn't need to do anything, but she saw an issue and she saw how that could possibly embarrass the host. And so she went to Jesus and, hey, can you fix this? And that is such a good example of looking out for the needs of others and interceding on behalf of others. And especially during this crazy time when we can't be around the people that we love, I've really liked getting to see the ways people are getting creative with how to love and serve their people, whether it's their families or their neighbors or just their friends when we can't be around each other right now. And so I want to hear from you guys. What are some creative and unique ways you've had to think of to serve and love the people around you when we can't be together in person? And everybody in the chat, I want you to comment too and tell us how you're loving and serving others and having an others-focused mindset during this crazy, crazy time. So Katie, how about you? How has it looked different?
Yeah, you know, we were talking about this as a team the other day because we're all spread out right now in our homes, as are so many people. And we're so used to celebrating each other in person. Like one of our teammates, Kristen, had a birthday this week, and our teammate Amy had a baby. And like, we're so used to just showing up and being with our people. And we've just had to get super creative. Like you said, you know, we've had to send videos and cards and gifts and do lots of FaceTimes and Zoom calls like everyone else. And we've also seen like so many emails and posts from you guys about the ways that you're getting creative and doing these online Bible studies or staying connected to your small group and doing birthday parades. And, you know, we've just been talking about how like our mission hasn't changed and like our calling to go make disciples has not changed whatsoever. It's just that the method has for a second. You know, we've just had to get a little bit creative in how we reach out to people, but absolutely, like we love people the same. And so we've just had to change how we get in touch just a little bit.
Yeah. Our team has gotten really fun in the past few weeks with how we've kept up with each other and tried to celebrate with each other even when we can't be together. Kaylee, how about you? How does it look different?
Yeah, so like Katie said, I have loved getting to see all of you guys be creative on social media. One of our favorite things is when you guys tag us in your posts and your stories. And I've just seen so many different things, whether that's Zoom Bible studies, like Katie said, or doing virtual if tables. It's just so encouraging. And we've been talking a lot about, as a staff, just Ephesians 2:10, which just talks about how God has prepared for us in advance the good works we would do. And so in this time where serving and all that stuff looks so different, we can just walk in the confidence of the truth that God knew, and our purpose and mission hasn't changed. But I think one of the ways I've served people in this season and just tried to reach out to people is just phone calls and just listening. I've noticed that no one feels the same about what's going on because no one's circumstances, I mean, everyone's circumstances are so unique. And so some people are really grieving and mourning. And so just what does it look like to just call people and listen and not really offer a ton of wise words, but just be there to meet them where they're at and share in what they're going through. And so I think a lot of listening has kind of been my thing lately.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we made Caroline mad. I'm just kidding. I think we lost her.
Am I back?
Oh, she's back. Yeah, she's back. Let's see.
Kaylee, I love that. I feel like whenever I've gotten sad or just frustrated with having to stay at home this whole time, whenever I look out on my family or my neighbors or my friends and try to see how can I reach out? How can I serve them? Even if it's just a FaceTime to my parents or dropping off some toilet paper to my neighbor, that really gets my mind off myself and reminds me this is not about me. This is not about, how I'm feeling. I'm not confined to just me and myself. So I love that. I think that's such a good point. You guys in the chat are having such a fun time.
I know,
there's
so many good ideas.
I know.
Chris is throwing her sister a drive-by baby shower. That's one of my favorite things that has come out of this quarantine is the drive-by birthday parties and anniversary celebrations.
Yeah.
I think it's so fun.
Yeah, can we keep that? Can we just keep that as a thing?
Yeah.
It's super fun.
Yeah. Lisa P is sending cards with drawings that she made, learning how to draw online. That is really fun. Kendra J is keeping a list of people to pray for and reach out to every day. And Tori O is homeschooling her little ones. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that if you have kiddos at home. That is a huge service and a ton of sacrifice. And she is our hero for sure. All of you moms out there that are taking care of kids all day, we feel for you. So Kaylee, we kind of talked about this when we were talking through the video and kind of what we wanted to touch on tonight. And I really liked what you had to say. And you touched on it a little bit at the beginning, but just about Mary's surrender and how she was so quick to obey and surrender. And so I want to circle back on that for our last question. And you talked about how Mary's surrender was so big and the call that God had on her life was monumental. She was going to birth and raise the Messiah, and he was going to be the one that is going to reconcile us with God and give us a chance to have a relationship with him, which is the most crazy thing in the whole world. And that is probably not going to be the call in my life, but God is calling me to be obedient too. And so how do we take what we're learning about Mary's obedience and her faithfulness and her heart and how God has grown that in her and use it in our own lives? And I loved what you had to say about that. So do you want to tell us a little bit about how you think Mary's obedience applies to our life too?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like we were saying, Mary's act of obedience was monumental and it literally changed history forever. And I think it can be easy to look at that story and be like, okay, well, God isn't calling me to anything that big. So what I'm doing doesn't matter that much, or that surrender isn't as big of a deal, whatever it can be. But that's just not truth. And I think the whole idea of this week and this study is that before Mary was Jesus' mother, she was just ordinary. And so I think this idea of God working through ordinary people, and before anything, she found favor in the eyes of the Lord. And I mean, you know this, but something we say around our office a lot is just do small things well. And because of those small faithful steps of obedience, I mean, faithful in little, faithful in much is what it says in scripture. And so I think, I'm not being called to this thing that's going to change history forever, but I think I've just had to look at my own life and my own heart and be like, okay, what does surrender look like for me today? Is God asking me to surrender my time? Like in the night after work, like what does it look like to surrender what I want to do for what he would have me do, whether that's reaching out to a girl and discipling her, or is that surrendering financially? I know there's so many people who are just struggling right now. So does my act of surrender, my act of obedience look like giving a financial gift? I don't know. Just there's so many different things that are acts of surrender, whether that's time, finances, you know, even our desires and our control. So yeah, I just think it's a small acts of obedience and surrender that add up to the big thing. And so, yeah, I think that's what I've been processing. And just as I look at scripture, I've been praying to the Lord, what's my thing you're asking me to surrender? Let it be to you according to your word.
Yeah, that's so good, Kaylee. And I think about Mary's, you know, response at the wedding too, when she went up to the servant and said, like, whatever he says to do, like, do that, you know, because she trusted him and she knew him.
What he says.
And and so like when we know who he is, like it changes the way that we can respond, and it changes the way that we can step into those small acts of obedience, because it's quick to let fear and anxiety take the lead. And we have to kind of stop and step back and remember that it's a daily act of surrender. So that's so good.
Yeah.
Let's check in on the chat. Let's see what.
Yeah, let us know what you guys feel like God is calling you to surrender, or what faithfulness looks like to you guys right now.
Yeah,
y'all, I had to change spots.
Oh, you're back.
Am I back?
Caroline Parker, we're so sorry about the tech issues.
It's okay. It's my internet, not yours. But yeah, Kaylee, I love that. If is all about small steps of obedience, and you said that, and just we care so much because the small steps end up being a whole life of obedience, and that is a monumental change, and that can change lives, just like Mary birthing the Messiah is a monumental thing.
Yeah.
So I love that. What's going on in the chat? What are people saying?
Betty H said, surrendering my control, and that like 100% is the hardest thing to do, but it's what we're called to do. That's good. Let's see what else.
Yeah, I think even right now we're kind of in a forced surrender of control in some ways. Like I'm
absolutely.
Like, well, I can't.
Yeah. If you thought you had control over something, you've probably lost it in the last few weeks.
Yeah, seriously.
Right. Yeah, and some of you guys are talking about having like family spread out in other states right now, and that's our hard part too. You know, we've like lost a little bit of that freedom to come and go, and having to surrender just the trust that Jesus has it under control and that he's holding them to, it's all part of it. Oh, Caroline, we can't hear you anymore. Caroline, I think your audio went out. Oh, you're back. Maybe not. Well, here, I will just remind you guys that we have a PDF of what the women saw that's available in our online Shop A. Shop A is our fancy word for shop, but it's shoppe.ifgathering.com. So if you want to read the daily devotionals that go along with the study, you can do that by downloading the PDF. We also have it available at ifequip.com. And then next week, the same time, Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central, we're going to watch session 2. And we'll hop back on after this and discuss it together. And if you guys want to watch any of the videos, like if you need to go back and watch that one again because there was something you wanted to write down and you missed it, or if you get behind, you can do this at your own pace. rightnowmedia.org/ifgathering. There's all of the videos there for free. And Caroline, I think we have you back now. Oh no, we can't hear you. We'll get Caroline some tech help next week over there in Dallas.
Yeah, well, we have just loved spending this time with you guys. Just a way to connect in a time where physical isolation and connecting is kind of hard. This has just been just such a privilege for us. So thanks for spending the night with us and just giving us your time and your comments. We're so encouraged. Our favorite thing to do as a staff is just look out to you guys and look to you for leadership and to see how you guys are doing things. So we're encouraged by you and blessed by you guys and just grateful. So
Yeah. Love you guys. Thanks for being here. Caroline loves you too. She just can't say it. Thanks, guys. Have a good week.
Bye. Thank you.